Hi everyone, I hope this video will all find you doing well. I wanted to post an important video to walk through some important parts of the class coming up here and a little bit about from the last couple of weeks. The typical spot that I do my video is being used right now, so I'm not there, I'm in a different spot. I know this is the craziest time of year right now with the semester wrapping up and spring coming, and if you have kids, then it's a very busy time for them and lots of stuff going on. So I certainly um, appreciate how hard everyone is working to stay above water and to get through to the summer here, which for many of us is just as busy as any other time of the year. So I really encourage you to watch this whole video, though. I think it's a very important video, and it goes through some important stuff. So the first is that the partner critique was due yesterday. Not much to say about that other than I hope you CC'd Brandy and got the partner critique to her. If you didn't CC Brandy on it, then make sure that you send it to Brandy. Please review the instructions in the announcement that goes over how to submit and do everything with the partner critique. Next thing, I am done reading all of your papers and grading them. So if you do not have a paperback, please make sure that you email me. Really important thing here. If you submitted your paper on Blackboard, there are really 3 areas of feedback. Really 2, kind of 2.5. So the first is just kind of that general comment area, just very general feedback. Then I have the rubric comments, so make sure you can open up the rubric and see the comments on the rubric. And then perhaps the most importantly, or the most concrete at least, are the comments and the edits that I made on your actual paper in the review mode of Microsoft Word. So if you submitted a PDF, I couldn't do that. But if you submitted a Microsoft Word, which most of you did, then there are comments and edits in the paper. Make sure you can see these. Okay, so you have a couple of areas of feedback. Make sure you're using this to develop your final draft. If you don't see the feedback or you don't have your paperback at this point in time, please make sure you email me because it's really important to get that to you. How do I grade the final draft? Great question. I grade the final draft in a couple of different ways. I use the same rubric and everything, so that's very similar. But one additional thing that I do is I open up your first draft, look at all the comments, look at all the edits that I made, and then I look at your final draft. And did you make the comments? Did you make changes from your first draft? The point of this paper is to develop it. So I really look for, is there development? Is there change? Things like that. Now, there is a little bit of a caveat to that, right? So if you got, a 97 on the paper, then there's probably only a thing or two for you to change, and there's not that much. So don't feel like you have to change much. But if you got, let's say, an 80 or a 70 on the paper, then there's probably, something significant to develop or change. And make sure that you do that. Again, the purpose of this is to develop your writing. And just because you got an 80 on the first draft doesn't mean that you are guaranteed an 80 or higher on the second draft. So if you turn in the same paper with no changes, then you are going to get a lower grade on your final draft. So you are not guaranteed a minimum of your first draft grade for your final draft. I will probably try to mention that again before it is due, but please make sure that you know that. But again, the amount of change or development that's needed will vary from person to person. Some people, that will be very, very minimal. Some people, it will be quite drastic. And most people will be somewhere in the middle. Okay. Some very general feedback on the first draft. One thing I just wanted to say to everyone and have everyone hear, I would say that one of the most consistent pieces of feedback I gave on the first draft, and this may have been because it was a first draft and maybe people didn't do quite as much editing as I would have hoped, But please make sure that you're rereading your papers and um, you are editing and you are making your sentences clean and you're using paragraphs. A lot of people struggled with using paragraphs. Paragraphs are a great tool in your writing. They allow you to separate ideas, they allow the reader to know where we're at in the paper, and they allow the reader to breathe. It is difficult with these types of papers to read a paragraph that is like a page and a half because they're usually very convoluted and very difficult to understand, and they jump from idea to idea. So make sure you use paragraph to parse your ideas out. A really wise professor, psychology professor actually, in my undergraduate, told me that when you read a research paper, when you read a piece of good writing in general, think about books that you like that you might read. It should be like reading nothing. And what that means is that it should be so smooth that you don't have to catch yourself and reread a sentence because it doesn't make sense. That doesn't mean that you don't write about complex material and someone may have to stop and think about, okay, well, do I understand this concept? That's not the case, but the writing should be accessible. So if you're rereading your paper aloud and you get caught up on a sentence or you have to reread a sentence aloud again because you got caught up on the words, it probably needs to be changed. You have to be willing to change your sentences, which build better paragraphs, which builds better papers. Um, I had another really wise philosophy professor tell me to never become overly content with a sentence, essentially meaning that you can always improve a sentence. And I do believe in that. I don't want you to ruminate on a sentence all day. However, I do want you to be thinking, um, um, how can I make this clearer? So please just continue to be diligent about that. I promise you that if you kind of follow that code, then your writing will drastically improve over time. Not right away, but again, the goal of this class is to be planting some seeds to really be really be developing your writing. Um, Really, the last thing, some of you may have noticed, no one's emailed me on this yet, which is surprising. Maybe it's just I don't know why. I usually get a few emails about this, but you may have noticed that your first draft grade was out of 40 points. It may have been like 70 out of 40 or 80 out of 40. I want you to know that it's actually out of 100 points, right? So the first draft was worth 100 total points. So if you got an 80, you got an 80 out of 100, even though in the grade book it might read 80 out of 40. That's not 40 extra credit points, okay? It's a long, confusing explanation as to why it's like that. But we collect just general data, not specific to you, but just general data for assessment purposes for our department. And this is one of those things. So please know it's out of 100. But this also means that your grade will be inflated in Blackboard. So when you go to your Blackboard grade and it says that you have an 85% in the class, that's likely inflated. So make sure that you are determining what your grade is by using the syllabus, knowing how many points you have in the class. Okay, I have 440 points in the class. What does that correlate to? I have this amount of points left in the class that I can get with the final draft, and the peer critique, which is worth 50 points. So I won't go through how to calculate your grade, but make sure you're using the syllabus to calculate your grade, not Blackboard. Okay. So the final draft, everyone, is due on May 4th. And then you'll be done. So the cool thing about things right now in this class is that you have one last assignment, which is to complete your final draft. So you could get that done in the next couple of days, and you are done with the class. Wash your hands of it. But I hope that you have learned some good writing tools here, and I hope that maybe I've given you a couple of different things to think about with your writing that will carry into other classes, but just carry into your life with writing in general. Because as I said at the beginning of this class, good writing is really important no matter where you're at or what you're doing. So I may post one more video thing before the class ends, probably just saying goodbye. So be on the lookout for that. But I hope these last few weeks go really well for you all. please feel free to email me thoughts or questions about anything relating to your paper or the class or anything else.